Hello and welcome to another episode of Discover with Sbenati. We are in another location. We are in Renaissance 2, which is an amazing location. We're probably going to keep this location, but we'll find out what's going on. Today we have an amazing guest. Today we have a guest that is close to my heart. He's a close friend, and he's a pharmacist and a businessman, and a very funny guy, very, very gentle man. A lot to learn from, extremely humble. We're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about life improvements. We're going to talk about how to be the best that you can be, not military, but in your life. His name is Karim, and he comes to us from London. He's a London native, but he has a history which I will not cover right now because I'm going to get him to cover it a little bit.
It's lengthy.
But besides that, we are going to cover a lot of self-improvement tips because he has a lot of wealth and knowledge. He's really young. And he's got a lot of experience behind his belt, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. Thank you for those that are tuning in to the YouTube channel. Thank you for those that are tuning in to the podcast as you walk your dog, or you're in the gym, or just taking a walk, or whatever you're doing. Thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Without any further ado, Karim, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you
for
for
Discover with Sbenati. It's really great to have the opportunity to discover more about you. Because, you know, as friends, we don't get to ask these really off-topic questions. But now we're in a setting where we can.
Fire away.
Okay, so without going to too much further detail, just tell us a little bit of background as to what you do, how you came about to doing what you do, and we'll start from there.
Well, it's there's the basic answer. I'm a pharmacist by profession. I went to school in Toronto, graduated in 2006. I started working as a pharmacist right away, but I decided to move from Toronto. So when I graduated, I had never worked in a real setting before, so I decided that I needed to get some real world experience. So I looked at where pharmacists are short in Ontario, and by then I'm still living at home. I'm still, my mom, my dad, my siblings and stuff. So I packed up and I moved. First I was going to Kapuskasing.
Okay, wow.
In Toronto, so that was 8 hours away.
Right.
So it's funny, like to scout it out, I got in the car, my very first car, and I got in the car and I took my mom with me because she was bored. And we drove 8 hours straight just to see where Kapuskasing is, because there was no Google Maps or anything. It was all, I printed it off of MapQuest.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, I'm going to this place that I've
never... And you landed in the water.
No, we drove, it was in the middle of winter. Like I had never done serious winter driving at the time. And so I got into the car with my mom tagged along, because I think she was freaked out, but I think she said she was bored. And so we drove for 8 hours. We go through North Bay, New Liskeard, and it's all the fun Northern Ontario. We get to Kapuskasing, and then I missed it. Like I drove through it so quickly.
Because you blinked.
Yeah, so we drove right past it. And I was like, oh crap, I think we just passed it. And so we turned back around, and I was meeting this pharmacy manager guy for Walmart at the time, and we met at the Kelsey's. So this is a true story. I get to the Kelsey's, and there's this big Ford Expedition SUV running in the parking lot. And it's really cold out, but I was like, why is it, I'm a car guy. It's like, why is the car running? And then I see a puppy inside. Okay, there's a puppy inside. But like, how long is this going to be? Like, the car is, idling in Toronto was just like becoming a ticketed item. It was not before.
Right.
And so I was like, if this guy was in Toronto right now, he'd be getting a ticket. And it's like a big gas guzzler. And so anyway, I was early. I was about an hour early to the meeting with this guy. So me and my mom sitting in the car. And then I was like, maybe I should get you somewhere to rest for a bit until I meet this guy. And so we look for a hotel. There's, again, only one, just one main road. Right. So we drove back like 200 meters. I found a hotel. I booked a room. Mom, you settled in. Drove back, go inside. And then I walk in, and there's only one guy sitting by himself. And there's only like 3 or 4 tables that have people on them. So this guy's sitting, and he's got his drinks lined up. Like he already had like a few drinks. And he's like on his 4th or 5th. And I'm like, I hope this is not the man I'm about to speak to, because I needed I need to know about the job and the town and stuff. I know, and this is not a social gathering. Right. So I get it, and this is like I'm 18, 19, right? So I'm going in. I was like, okay, let's go talk to this guy. I'm very shy. I know you don't believe me, but I was very shy. So like, are you Jim? And he's like, oh, hey, you must be Karim. I was like, yes, I am. He's like, oh, come on in. What do you want? A drink? I was like, oh, I'm good. I don't drink. It's like, what? The first interaction, it's like, oh, don't worry about it. Let's just move on to the... And then we started talking about work and all that. It was like a 45-minute meeting. I didn't eat or anything. He made me very uncomfortable because he was really drunk. Like, he didn't want to eat. So I said, okay, well, I'm not going to eat either then. It's just, this is weird.
Weird.
This is very weird. And then he starts talking about the job, and then he's telling me all bad things about the job. And he really needs to get out. Like he's so out that he's speaking very
truth.
frankly. So it's like, okay. He's like, yeah, I need to get out of here. It's like, okay, so, and you're my ticket out of here. It's like, okay. And so I finished, and then I walk out, and I'm sitting in the car, and I'm like, just warming up a bit until before I start moving. I was like, what the hell was that? And then the puppy inside the Expedition probably like peed all over the car,
Oh,
like
my
jumping
goodness.
up and down and like barking and
Yeah,
barking
yeah,
and
yeah.
barking. And then guess who's the driver of that car?
Him.
It was him.
Yeah.
So we sat in there for 45 minutes. I got there an hour early, and remember I came and it was already there from
Yeah.
before. So that dog was in that car for at least
Oh,
2.5
my goodness.
hours.
My goodness.
And he's inside having drinks. So he comes out. As soon as he opens the door, the puppy gets right out and like pees, and then comes back in. And I don't think he even noticed that the puppy went out. But anyway.
Yeah, right.
He gets in there, he drives away, I don't know how, and I go back to that motel room. We sleep for like a couple of hours, and then we drive back to Toronto.
Okay.
And that was
And
Kapuskasing.
that was it. That was your
So
experience
after
with
that,
Kapuskasing.
yeah, so I was like,
Yeah.
this is a lot of real world experience in one day. So I started looking a little bit closer to Toronto.
Right.
And so it ended up being Sudbury. So I went to Sudbury, Ontario, and I lived there for a couple of years. But while I'm in Sudbury, I worked.
But Sudbury wasn't that much closer.
Sudbury is half the distance.
Okay.
So I figured half the distance is probably better.
Okay.
And it was with a different company, so it wasn't too much, grocery store like and
Right.
all that. So I was like,
Right.
okay, let's try it out. And then I lived in Sudbury, which was very difficult to find a place to rent in Sudbury. And again, I have no experience with any of these things. I'm
Right.
going from scratch, right?
Yeah.
But I worked from Barrie, like I took shifts with the same company from Barrie all the way up to Kapuskasing
Right.
with the competition
Yeah.
of where I was supposed to be working. And I did that for 2 years. So I was basically on the road between shifts and
Wow.
learning everything I can learn. So I was in my sponge phase.
Right.
I feel that I'm always in a sponge phase.
Yes.
But I needed to learn as much as I know, as much as I can about the different systems in pharmacy, the different types of pharmacies. I studied them in books, but I had never seen them.
Right.
And so I spent some time in like specialized pharmacies that deal with pain and methadone, and other pharmacies that deal with seniors only, other pharmacies that deal with mental illness and whatnot, and then other pharmacies, just general community retail, other pharmacies that do occupational therapy and home health care and that kind of stuff, like catheterization and canes, and so it was a lot of knowledge in a couple of years. And then I was about to get married. I proposed to my wife now at the time, and she was doing biomedical engineering.
When you were 20?
In Egypt. So that was, I actually went to see her parents when I was 17.
Wow.
That was a funny
Wow.
story too.
Okay.
And so they thought I was a kid. They thought I was like her dad the whole time. We met in in Egypt. There's those sports clubs you
Yeah.
can meet at. So we
Yeah.
met in like
How old was she at the time?
16.
16.
Yeah. And so
My
so I'm
goodness.
going there, and I'm like in second year pharmacy, right? So
Yeah.
I'm like I'm a man.
Right.
So I'm going in with a backpack, and in the bag, I swear, I had like my resume. I thought I was going to like a job interview. It was very funny. And it doesn't matter how smart you are, you need maturity.
Yes.
And so I went, and I'm like, the whole time we were sitting there, her dad was laughing at me, like whether it's out loud
or inside,
internally.
yeah, but you can see it.
And her mom was so angry.
Yeah.
Like her mom like hated my guts. Like, who's this boy that's distracted? My wife, if you think I'm smart, my wife is the book smart person.
Okay.
Like my wife was the top of her class in everything that she did.
Wow.
Like she was
That's amazing.
freakishly good in
Yes.
grades, and
Yeah.
I never was like the top of the class, but I was
Yeah.
always the youngest.
Right.
I did well, like I was in the top 10,
Apparently.
15%,
Yes.
but I was never like the guy. Like my brother, on the other hand, actually fast tracked too, and he was like my wife in terms of like book smart
Okay.
too. But in any case, so her
So
mom,
you went, yeah.
her mom was very keen on her doing her studies and getting to her university that she wants and all that. So it's like, who's this boy like distracting my daughter?
Yeah.
She's like I didn't expect this to happen
Yeah,
now.
right.
Like, so
She's still in high school.
So so she was very angry with me.
Yeah.
The dad was like, you're just a kid, man. Like,
Yeah.
well, just wait. بالراحة, wait. So I'm like, no, I'm like, and I have like, my
Yes.
heart said like, I know she's the one. I want to do this. I want to do this. I live in Canada, so I'm very far. So we have to figure out a way. So we can. And there's no smartphones, no.
Right. No FaceTime.
This is ICQ time. And so I'm like, I need to be able to like call and I need your blessing so I can get to know her.
Yes.
And so the meeting went okay, but I was like, freakishly nervous and,
Yes,
and
of
all that.
course.
And then a year after I came back,
Yeah.
And
A year?
Yeah,
So
well, I
it's
came
a-
back to school, right?
Yeah.
And then I went back again in Egypt in the summer.
Okay.
And so and I asked to meet her.
And during that time you were writing.
During that time,
you
it was
were-
like emails.
You were
every,
writing.
like,
Oh,
once
there were
a month.
emails. Were there emails at the time?
Yeah, once a month,
Oh, okay.
an email that I send, and
Okay.
if she's allowed to reply, she replied. Like it was
Okay.
tough.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I get there a month after, and then I call her dad up, and like I'd like to see you. He's like, who's this? And I was like, oh, it's Karim. We met last year. She's like, yeah, I remember. You're still there. I was like, yeah, I am still serious. It's like, you're still in one, okay, let's meet. So we met, we had coffee and stuff. And then that year, I remember when I was 18, we did the Rayt al-Fatiha. We did the initiation of the process.
Okay.
Now, at that time, and it's funny, like my dad wasn't in Egypt, so I couldn't take my dad. So I took my uncle and his wife. And they're like, what's Karim? I'm a shy guy, you don't understand.
Yeah,
and then
you
suddenly,
were, yeah.
And suddenly
Yeah.
I walk up to my uncle, I say, I need you to come with me to propose for this girl, to this girl.
Yeah.
He's like, Karim, how old are you? I thought you were still young.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, I am, but I still want you to come with me. He's
Yeah.
like, okay. And so him and my aunt, like his wife, and my mom. And my mom was like, in a bubble. She's like, she wasn't sure what's happening.
Yeah,
She was just going with the flow because my dad said, well, let him try, see what happens.
Yeah.
And so we went and we did the Rayt al-Fatiha. And then again, I was shipped off to Canada to finish my last year.
Yes.
And the plan was I'll come back in the year, we'll do the khutuba.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'll come back after, we'll do the Katb Kitab. And then I'll start her paperwork as she's still going to university.
Right.
So I'll start the paperwork for immigration and all that as she's finishing her school and I'm finding a job. And so that was the stretch that I graduated, went to Sudbury to work. She was still going into engineering in Egypt. And so when she was done and I was in Sudbury for a couple of years, so I said, okay, where is she going to go to school? Of course, I'm going every summer. So one summer I did the khutuba, one summer I did the Katb Kitab. And every time I go back, her dad's like, you still want to do this? And I was like, yeah, I've been telling you since I was 17. And so he's still laughing at me. But at 19, we did the Katb Kitab, so the Bika ceremony, I guess, as Canadians would call it. And then we did the wedding when I was 21, like the full reception party style. That wasn't so much of a typical party. Yeah, well, it was a process.
Yes.
I wasn't in a rush to get the final result, but I needed to put things in motion.
This tells me a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, this tells me a lot of things.
I'm persistent.
So no, not only are you persistent, you're very smart. You are very stubborn.
I think I am.
You're very adventurous.
Yeah.
You're a risk taker.
Yeah.
You like to try new things.
Yep.
And you're not afraid of trying anything that will make you seek your objective.
That makes sense in my head for
That's
some
right.
reason.
Seek your objective.
For some reason.
That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So okay, so let's back it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone just got a glimpse as to who you are.
Oh my craziness.
That's amazing. Okay, so you have a lot of energy that's kept inside your head.
Yes.
Okay, as opposed to me, my energy is very, very
External.
extrinsic.
Yes,
That's
yes,
right.
yes.
Okay, it's very shown. Okay.
And
But
it's internal too.
Yes, but that's amazing though. Okay, so let's back it up a little bit. Okay, so you're telling me the story that before we started this podcast. Your school journey.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were at 14. You graduated from high school.
Yes.
And then after 14, you went straight to university.
Yes.
But you started university second year because when you were in Egypt, they didn't allow you to start university because you're too young, and so you applied to come to UFT. And they allowed you because they didn't have that kind of law that restricted you based on age.
It's Canada, Australia,
That's right.
England, all of them were fine.
Right.
They don't care.
Except the country in which you were born.
And I wanted to go there. I was
Right.
so sad to leave, but
Right.
they was like, no.
Well, look at that.
There's a
Providence.
law. There's a law that says you have to do, I think, 11 years or something of undergrad before you go into university.
That's amazing.
It's like, but I did everything.
Yes.
Like, I just did
Yeah,
it in
I
a
have all
short
the
period of
requirements.
time. I have all the certificates.
Right.
I swear. I
Right.
did well too.
Yes.
But
But you're not old enough.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
And here they look at you like, oh, we have a genius in our class.
No, they didn't care. Actually, so that was surprising. So in Egypt, if you had gone in, like I remember my brother had an exception to get into the American university. He couldn't go to any of the public universities. But when he went into the American university, it's a private school in Egypt, but it's a U.S. managed school.
Yeah.
Just like the one in AOB, just like, and the newspapers came, like it was a big deal. And he was a bit older than me, like just by a few months. And so he got an exception to get in there. Like we got all the way to like first lady in order to like make an exception. Yeah. And so when he got in, they knew I was starting the process.
Okay.
They told my dad, like, your other son, don't even think about it. And so when I applied, they're like, we told you, don't even think about it. So he's not going anywhere. And so that's why we had to leave Egypt. And so when I came to Toronto, I was expecting, again, I'm a shy 14-year-old kid, fat, and like I still have sideburns because I had a mustache and sideburns since I was very young. And so I don't
still had fuzz.
Yeah, but my fuzz was in line with the 19-year-olds going in.
Oh my goodness.
And so I didn't look out of place.
Yes.
But if you talk to me, you'll know, like, I'm out of place.
Yeah.
And so I started university, and I'm thinking it's all like structured and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, my age is going to come out, and they're going to start like giving me the
Bullying
attention my
you
brother.
or
No,
whatever.
I was thinking they're going to give me the attention they were giving my brother. And I didn't want that to happen because I didn't want attention.
Right, 'cause
negative
you're
or
shy.
positive. I
Right.
just wanted to be left alone
Right.
and just walk, But it was so much like that, like nobody gave a damn about anything.
Yeah.
That I was like, what the hell? Like it's either this or that. Like, is there no balance in between of like?
Pay attention to me.
Because I needed some help.
Yes.
I come from a very structured academic life. My
Right.
dad walked me through every step of the way.
Yeah.
And high school is not like university. Like you get to choose your courses.
That's
like
right.
what? I'm
Yeah.
choosing my courses
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
What courses am I supposed to take?
Yeah.
I was like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to do medical school. Like
Yeah.
the first time I had to make a decision, I went to the admission of medical school and
Yeah.
I was like, I need to come here.
Yeah.
What do I take to come here? She was
Yeah.
like, but you're still in Frosh Week. I was like,
Yeah.
yes, but I need to come. It's like, honey, like the lady at the end said, honey, it doesn't work that way. I was like, well, how does it work then? There's no Google. She's like, well, you need to choose an undergrad. I was like, I am in an undergrad. My dad signed me up for undergrad. It's called life sciences or something. But I don't want life sciences. I want to go to medical school. Yeah. And so she's like, I was getting like angry. Like, why are you dismissing me? Like she's telling you, like, honey, that's not how it works. I was like, stop calling me honey. And just tell me how do I get into medical school. And so, and of course, U of T is very competitive, right? So like by the end of first year, I could see like, it's a rat race to get into medical school, dentistry and all of those things. And people were like, I was first now I'm starting to get exposed to like people, taking advantage of you, stealing your notes and like, cheating off of your exams. I was like, wow, like this is a whole new universe.
Yeah.
In high school it happens, but it's subtle and kind and mild.
Right.
But in this it was
right.
a jungle.
That's right.
And so the first year was very tough and it just took a while to get used to it.
Yeah.
But eventually I started, okay, let's figure this out and take courses that I like and whatnot.
Right.
And eventually I started looking for resources. So I found out there's like the student resource center where you can go talk to someone if you're having difficulty.
Yeah.
But all the people there were talking about like suicide and stuff. I was like, I just need to choose my courses. It was so fun. The lady was like, really? That's the problem? It's like, what do you want to do? I was like, medical school. It's like, but nobody does medical school like in first year. It's like, but that's what I want. And so it was the same conversation I had with the admissions with the student resource. And then she dismissed me as well to talk to someone that was about to commit suicide.
Oh, goodness.
And I didn't even know like that's what people are coming there for. Like it's the student association, student council or something. Right. And so they're helping, it's emergencies.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I didn't know, again, oblivious. And so I'm there talking about my problems, thinking it's like the biggest thing in the world.
I want to get into med school.
And they're like, honey,
honey, go study.
That's not the problem. And so, but eventually I found this guy that was like a course council. So U of T is divided into colleges. Again, it's just not knowing that there are resources or what the resources are that didn't help either.
Right.
And I remember like my dad had to drop us off to Canada and like we did our landing and everything and then he had to go back to work.
Right.
So he wasn't, like he was the one that navigated.
So you were here all by yourself?
I navigated this undergrad
all by yourself.
After the application process. So he helped me
and you
fill
were,
the application and all of the paperwork.
And so you lived here by yourself?
Off. No, I was with the family. So I was with my mom. We lived downtown Toronto, me, my mom, my sister, my brother.
Oh, okay.
But my brother was already ahead and he was used to the system and he was in his, teenage years now. My brother and I was 14, he was 17, 18. So he was like, I'm a man, I got my stuff. So he didn't care about anything, he just did his own thing. My sister was just starting grade 9, and so she had her school to worry about, and the whole cultural shock in high school.
That's right.
And then my mom was dealing with being like basically single parent, dealing with 3 hormonal children in a foreign country by herself, as her husband had to go and get money. And so
it makes it that much easier.
It was fun.
Yeah.
But eventually a study guide and all that, and he helped me through courses, choices, and all that, and then I ended up not going to medical school.
So why? Because right now you're a pharmacist.
Yes.
But before that, I just want to, because there's a fascinating story how you're 14 years old, you graduated high school, went to second year university because you already had done all the first year university courses credits in high school while you were 14.
Yes.
And so then by the time you graduated, now you're in UFT in year 2.
Yes.
Okay, you're very stubborn, you want to get into med school.
Yep.
Okay, but then somehow you end up doing pharmacy. You get into pharmacy school when you're 16. 16, yes. The majority of like everyone is still in high school.
Yep.
Now you're in pharmacy at 16.
Yep.
You graduate from pharmacy at the age of 20.
Yep.
At 20, people are in second year university when they're 20 years old, and you just finished pharmacy.
License. Yeah.
Like, didn't you find yourself out of place?
I was always out of place. I was always out of place since I also fast-tracked earlier, so I fast-tracked a total of 5 years. Mm-hmm. So earlier, the way I got into high school at 12 in the first place is I did grades 4 and 5 in the same year, and then I did grades 7 and 8 or something, equivalent of in 1 year as well.
Right.
And so I kept skipping ahead to another class.
Right.
And so
were you ever bullied because you were the youngest person? Were you ever picked on?
So I have a blessing and a curse.
Okay.
I was always big. Oh. And I'm always calm. And so if you don't know me, you'll think I'm like confident calm. Mm. And so everybody thought...
Like the Don in the Mafia.
Yeah, it's like,
okay.
Yeah, what do you want?
Yeah.
Like everybody thought that I'm like, I'm confident.
You were the biggest in your class, even though you're the youngest?
I was a pretty big kid. I wasn't the biggest, but I was a pretty big... Like, you don't mess with me because I'll sit on you.
Big like...
Big, fat.
Oh, fat.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I was a fat kid that speaks calmly. It's like, yeah, what?
Oh, right. Okay.
So I never got bullied in the traditional sense of bullying, like as a young person,
right.
As people picking
because
on.
you weren't easy to pick on.
But I got picked on, like I remember when I went from like grades 4 to 5, people would steal my pencils and my pens and stuff, and be like, you're in the wrong class, go back, you should be back 1 year. Because I knew people in the school. Yeah. My mom used to teach in the same school,
right.
And so I went to a class that my mom used to teach that everybody knew I was younger than them, and now I'm in the same class as them.
Right.
And so he would take my stuff, and I don't run away from my anxiety. I tend to
face them.
So I challenged them all to like a fight, and I had never
physical
fights. Like, okay, meet me downstairs, and we're gonna settle this. And I was like, I was dying inside. I was so serious.
Yeah. And
I was like, okay, I talked to the people that are my friends. Like, listen, if something happens to me,
come get me.
I go tell my mom.
Oh, okay.
and so I go down, and I'm like, we're all like, we have parents that are teachers in the school.
Yeah.
And the 3 guys that were picking on me had parents that are teachers in the school too. And so it became like a big deal. It's like, there's a fight happening downstairs. Like, so we're famous because of our parents.
Yes.
I wasn't famous.
Right.
So my brother was famous in the same school, but he was a few years ahead.
Yeah.
And so it's like, there's a fight happening downstairs. And so I go down, and I'm like pacing, and like we made in the playground, it was made of dirt, and we made like a square. Yeah. And I'm like a boxing ring, and I'm in there. I'm waiting for this guy to
Fight
show
Club.
up. And I'm like, okay, let's do this.
Have you seen Fight Club?
I have, much later on.
Okay.
And so I'm sitting there waiting, and he never shows up. And so I'm like getting pissed now. It's like, I was getting...
And there's an audience?
And there's people waiting.
Oh, there you go.
But not like an audience that's waiting like a tremendous Fight Club style. But like my buddies, the geeks, the nerds. Yeah. So my buddies were the kind that like hold the sandwich, and there's a plastic bag with sandwiches, like glasses, the tiny guys, right? The wimpy kids.
Yes.
And then on the other end, there's like other teacher kids, other teachers' sons and daughters. And they're like, was he coming? Is he not coming? So I'm waiting there, and he never comes. The whole playground time ends, and he never showed up. And so I walk up, and now I'm like pissed. Like before I was nervous, but I walk up.
Now you're confident.
Now I'm like, now I'm
okay,
pissed.
yeah.
It's like, what?
He didn't even
what
show
the hell,
up.
Man?
You wasted my time.
Up. Yeah.
My time's worth money.
I know all this anxiety I lived through, and he didn't even show up. Like at least show up.
Yeah.
And so I go upstairs, and I'm like I'm charging into the classroom. And like if I see this guy, I'm gonna punch him right in the face. Like I'm pissed. And I walk in, and I see like one of the teachers, an Arabic teacher who knows my mom and knows his mom really well, giving it to him. Like she's yelling at him like there's no tomorrow. She's like, "What are you doing? He's new to the class." And he's like sitting like a kitten.
Oh,
we're like in grade 5. We're not big kids.
Right.
And he's like, I didn't do anything. And I was like, oh my God, you guys are such children. And so I go, and I was like, give me my stuff. Just give me my stuff. And I go to, like, he used to take it and hide it with other people. So everybody, just come, give me my stuff back. Okay, I don't want to talk to any of you ever again. And I go sit down. And then the next day he comes, he's like, okay, I'm really sorry. I didn't, I was just messing around.
Put the bully in his place. That's amazing. Okay, so what about when you were growing up? Like when you were growing up, because you're always the youngest.
Yeah.
Did you ever get picked on?
I did, but not because of my age. So I never looked much younger than everybody else.
Okay.
So I always just fit in because of being quiet and being bigger in size.
Yeah.
Nobody really, and I had, again, like sideburns and stuff, so
Yeah.
nobody really thought that I was much younger.
I
Like, even
see.
if you thought I was younger,
Yeah.
you'd think I'm like a year younger or
I see.
something. But no one
Not substantially.
thought I was
Yeah.
substantially younger.
Yeah.
And so people would pick on me because I sounded like a geek.
Okay.
Or because I knew, like, I get reflective on questions and stuff. Like
Right.
when everybody was talking about questions that are silly, I would be like, but what happens if this happens and this
Right.
happens? Like,
You're taking things more
I'd be quiet,
seriously.
I'd be very quiet,
Right.
and then I ask a question that's like, huh?
Yeah.
Like, what is,
Like where they come from? Yeah.
where were you sitting? And I
Yeah.
sit in the back. Like, I
With the cool kids.
not even with the cool. I sit in the corner, like, that's not cool or not geek. Like, I don't want to be seen. I hide, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
But you know what's funny is that despite you saying you're shy,
Yeah.
you're still not shy academically.
academically, yeah.
You were shy.
Books, I was okay.
Yeah.
I can ask
Because you were
questions and
confident
stuff because I felt that I understood it.
Right.
If I understand something,
Right.
I can sell it now.
Right.
If I understand something,
Right.
I can talk about it.
Right.
So I didn't understand all of the social growing up. I didn't understand all of the dynamics.
And
of
so you want to
these
stay away
people.
from it.
So I just wanted to. Yeah. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't want it. I didn't want any negative. I just.
And what does your dad do?
My dad's a physician. He's a clinical
physician.
pathologist. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's a physician. He guided you through all this education.
Yes.
And obviously he guided your brother through all the education.
Absolutely.
So he pushed you to actually skip all these grades,
Yes.
right?
He did.
Okay. So he instilled in you that academic confidence, right?
Yeah.
You would say so?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So okay. So now let's fast track a little bit. Okay.
And
So
academics for him were always like, in Egypt, academics, growing up in the generation of my father, it's coming in after like occupation from English, occupation from French before that.
Yeah.
If you had no, in Middle East, honor
Yeah.
is a big deal.
That's right.
And it's not just Middle East, but in Canada's a new country, so
Right.
that system doesn't really exist here.
Right.
But in countries that have a lot of heritage, even Ireland, England,
Right.
you always have this honor
That's
thing
right.
is a big deal.
That's right.
Honor comes from a few things. One of them is wealth.
That's right.
If you're known as a wealthy family from ages ago. Another angle is possessions,
That's
like
right.
if you own things.
Yeah.
Another angle is if you're politically famous and loved, but politics in the Middle East,
That's right.
they go up and down.
Yeah.
And then the third angle, or the
Education.
fourth angle, is education.
That's
If you're
right.
like the doctor, so when doctor came, doctor left,
Yeah.
doctor did,
Yeah.
doctors, PhD, masters, so physicians.
Automatic respect.
Yeah, so physicians and dentists and pharmacists, they go through all of the 5 to 7 years of
Yeah.
undergraduate studies into their colleges. They get their professional degree. Then they're worthless until they go do a master's
Right.
for 2-3 years, and then a PhD,
Right.
and then a postdoc,
Yeah.
and then a fellowship. So my dad had like 5 or 7 degrees under his belt, and he did it in record time according to his timeline. And so he was always pushing us to achieve academia.
Even faster than what he did.
Yes, because in
Okay.
his mind, his family had a lot of suffering growing up.
Right.
Like we come from a good and very historically significant family, but
Yeah.
in different part of where we lived altogether.
Right.
Alexandria, a different city. We
Yeah.
moved to Cairo.
Yeah.
My grandparents moved to Cairo and
Yeah.
like left all that behind
Right.
because of negativity and everything.
Got you.
And they were all in survival mode. And then
So then he pushed you to do all that.
yeah.
Okay.
It was his drive for
okay.
sure.
So then my question to you is, since your dad was a physician, you're aiming to get into med school. What made you
Yeah.
switch from going to med school to going to pharmacy? Is
Good
it
question.
and you cannot tell me it's because people were hounding on the competition of getting into med school.
No, I was actually against getting into pharmacy until I got to second year pharmacy. So I'll tell you the story.
Until you got into second year
Second year
pharmacy.
pharmacy.
So you got into pharmacy
And
against
I
your
was
will?
Yes. My dad again, and I'll explain why.
Okay.
So I wanted, I'm stubborn. You are right. I am a very stubborn person.
Well, I mean,
when it comes to
I
certain things.
I actually didn't know that about you until you were telling me all these stories, specifically when it came to you.
Making sense now.
No, it's not making sense. I'm discovering things about you.
Yeah.
Because specifically when it came to you
Discover
and your,
Sbenati.
that's right. Come to you and your wife.
Yeah.
Right? When you're like how
Yes.
you were so stubborn
Yeah.
that you waited 4 years despite you not contacting her for years,
Yeah.
right, at a time.
Yeah.
You're still like okay, this is
I
my
haven't
goal.
lost sight.
That's right.
Yeah.
This is my goal.
Yeah.
I'm not changing it.
Yes. So my
So
problem.
that's how I knew you're stubborn.
So yeah, and
Yeah.
you're right. So I'm stubborn in
But
these
not-
things
but
very
not-
much.
but stubborn is not a bad thing.
I know.
Right? Stubborn is actually a really good
That's
thing.
why I call it persistent.
Right.
And so my persistence about medical school is this. So my dad has glaucoma. So the reason I wanted to become a physician had nothing to do with that my dad was a physician or I have a lot of uncles that are physicians or any of that. But I honestly did not know what I want to be. Like, you finish high school at 14.
Yeah.
you don't know what you
Right.
want to be.
Your hormones are just starting.
I was like, Dad, what am I studying next? That's my high school.
Right.
You know, he's like, these are your courses.
Yeah.
Go study them. I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I'll
Yeah.
go study them. I'm
Yeah.
a good kid.
Right.
Right. But going into university, I was like, I have no idea what I want, and that freaked me out. I was like, I got to fix this. And so, you know, just like in the business course, like, you know, you're a manager. So I was always in the mode, like, I got to fix it. I have to fix it. And so in order to fix it, I got to be this. I got to be an ophthalmologist first, and I got to get into surgery, and then I got to specialize in glaucoma. That's my thinking. And I didn't ask because I was used to just, he's telling me what I'm going to study. So I'm just, when it comes time that I make my choice, that's what I'm going to choose. So when it came time, like, you know, I didn't realize when I first walked into U of T that this is the time that I have to choose. And so I freaked out. That's why I went to medical school admission. It's like, I need to get into medical school. It's like, oh, holy crap, that's what I need to do. She's like, but this is not the time yet. So when I figured out that it wasn't the time yet, I calmed down a bit. And I went back to study my studies to get my pre-medical done. And then I started joining associations. So I joined the pre-medical association. And I actually joined the pre-dental association as well.
Yeah.
Because in second year, I started thinking, I was watching Muhammad Ali. He was, you know, the whole boxing scene to me. And my dad used to box as well. Again, my dad, inspiration.
Wow.
He used to box a bit and wrestle when he was in school. So I was a big kid. I was like, I need to get into some sort of sports. Like, I need to do something because this is not going away. And so I started watching Muhammad Ali, and the movie by Will Smith at the time came out.
Yeah.
And so that one, after reading the book, and it's like, I watched this, and it was nice. And then I was like, I researched what boxers, the worst thing that happens to them is, and it's jaw damage. Like they get, and then I read about jaw reconstruction after accident victims. I was like, oh, that would be very cool too. So either, okay, I have a plan B now. So my first plan was ophthalmology and surgery and fixed glaucoma. And my second plan is jaw reconstruction.
Yeah.
These are the two things I want to do, nothing else. I want to do nothing else. It's only these two.
Yeah.
They told me you got to, so when I went to see the council that told me to take what courses and all that, he said, but listen, son, and he was the one that knew how old I am. And he's like, okay. He knew my brother. So he's like, okay, oh, you're Mustafa's, right? Okay, let me talk to you then, because, you know, you're going to have some hard time. So he's like, okay, you need to have a plan B. So when I went and I looked for plan B, I looked for a more complicated plan B than plan A. So anyhow.
So then how'd you end up in pharmacy?
This is what happened. So I looked into the two paths, and the two paths were a 16-year path. One was 16, one was 14. With fellowships and spots and across Ontario, I'm sure you know, and you don't, it's like a 50-50 chance you're going to get it, 10%. And then it's a 10% chance you're going to get it, and then it's like one in all of Canada. So I was like, oh my God, like I'm going to graduate when I'm 40. That's if I get into all of the things that I want to get. I didn't fast track all of this, so I was having a hard time. So my dad is watching me go through this, and my dad, like I call my dad from Concentrate. So my dad, most of my life, my dad was in Saudi Arabia working. And so, but he shows up and he gives an intense fatherhood session, and then he disappears. Intense fatherhood and then disappears. And so in one of his intense fatherhood moments,
from Concentrate.
That's how I describe him to himself now.
It's like orange juice from Concentrate. Yeah, okay.
And so he showed up one year when I was in second year. He shows up, and when I was like, so which is third year equivalent. And so he shows up and he's like, he's looking at me and he's like, so what are you gonna do? I was like, oh, I don't know. This is my planning. And I'm very like serious and stern. And so he's like, okay. And he takes this application out literally from under his seat. He's like, sign here. I was like, what is this? He's like, I just found this. I was walking on campus. It's an application for pharmacy. So let me tell you about this. I met this pharmacist in a conference. He's telling me, and he works for a pharmaceutical company, and they do research. And he knew that I liked like cancer, and you know, I like the high profile things, right? And so he's like, and he's doing research, and he gets to travel all over the world, and he gets to do this, and he gets to do that. He's not bound to a specific location, and he's this, and he's that. And I saw you in him. I felt that this could be you when you grow up. And so I know you want this, and you should go for them 100%. And he was, you know, basically telling me you're full of crap. But you know, I know you 100% go for them. But sign here. I was like, I don't want to apply to pharmacy. He's like, well, listen, it's like another undergrad degree. If you get into pharmacy, you don't like it, just do your 2 years and get out and go apply. Still apply to medical school. And so I was literally in first year pharmacy school. So I got in, like, and I was taking pharmacy so like, you know, carelessly. Like I was like, what is this application? Like medical school is a full and essays and references. Pharmacy, I needed a few references, but it wasn't anything complicated. It was a 2-page application, $100 fee. That was it, and you just submit it, and then they invite you if you meet the criteria to go do the admission test. And again, I was, you know, the admission test is about critical thinking. It's a basic, you know, thing. And so I'm like going through the motions, but in the back of my mind, I was like, this is a joke. Like, I shouldn't be here. It's a waste of time. What am I doing? And then I get into pharmacy and I'm showing up and it's like meeting all these new people. It's like, oh, here we go again, another crowd. and then come second year pharmacy, I'm hosting Boston University pre-dental, the dental school administration office. I'm hosting them to come give a talk to the pre-dental society, which I'm the VP of.
Okay.
And I'm hosting medical school representatives as well to come and talk to people about the application process. And after the Boston University one, the guy that came from Boston, there was like 3 people that came from Boston University, talked to a big crowd. And so they look at me, so what year are you in? So they so assumed I was a dentist. Like I spoke with such passion, and I was like, so what year are you in? I was like, second year. And they're like, oh, great. I was actually the one more year. I was like, no, pharmacy. They're like, oh, they thought I was joking. And it's like, no, I'm serious. I'm in second year pharmacy. They're like, oh, okay. And it was a very awkward end of conversation, and they walked away. And so that moment, I realized, like, this is weird. What I'm doing is strange. So I went back, and I'm like thinking, okay, what do I want to do? The application to medical school is the application to medical school. I don't like leaving things unfinished.
Yeah.
And that's something my dad knew about me more than I knew about myself.
Yeah.
And so when I was going into second year, I said, I'm going to finish pharmacy and then decide. Or I'm going to finish pharmacy as I'm applying. But I'm not going to leave 2 years of pharmacy loosey-goosey.
I got you.
And then, so in my mind, as I'm hosting these events, I'm applying for 2 years after to go into whatever.
Yeah.
And so when I was in second year and these events happened, I started thinking about what my dad said about that pharmacy could be mobile. So I started actually looking into pharmacy.
Okay.
So it's only in second year pharmacy
the potential of pharmacy.
that I started studying what pharmacy is about.
Right.
And then I looked into the research component, and I looked into some of the, and I started liking some of the things about it. So my main focus through all of pharmacy school, which changed drastically after as well, and that's part of me growing up through education, is research. I wanted to do cancer research, and I wanted to do research through industry. So I didn't want to do academic research.
Right.
I wanted to do industry.
Application, gotcha. Yes, that's amazing.
And then after I finished, I realized, the wrong way, that after I was done in Canada, actually the path of research is very different. You don't need pharmacy degree. You do pharmacy to practice as a pharmacist. You don't do pharmacy to go and do research after. And so if you wanted research, you did biochemistry or chemistry or something.
And then you do master's
you
PhD,
don't,
right?
Yeah. And so that's that was the turning point.
So that's how you became
that's how I became a pharmacist.
So you stuck to pharmacy.
Yeah.
And you never wanted to actually apply to become either a medical doctor or a dentist.
So I finished the application to submit 3 times.
Okay.
Once in third year pharmacy.
Yeah.
And then I didn't submit it because I was coming up to exams and stuff, and I said, okay, I'm just going to wait till exams are done.
Yeah.
And then like family stuff happened, so it never happened in that year. So I said, okay, I'm going to finish. And then as soon as I graduated, and I needed to work because again, I recognized in fourth year when I had my placements, my fellowships, that I know nothing about real life.
Okay.
Like I'm in a bubble.
Yeah. And you're also extremely young.
I'm extremely young, and nobody knows, so they're
Right.
treating me like a grown up.
Right.
And I'm young.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never worked in any place.
Remember, you graduated at 20.
Yeah, and I worked in labs. The
Yeah.
only jobs I had through university
Yeah.
were a research assistant
Right,
in labs.
right.
And so I worked with mice and rats, and
Right.
I set up experiments and stuff.
Not with like
in the
patients
academic
or like
community,
that, right.
I was very good at that in the
Right.
environment, but I never interacted. I get nervous. I used to sweat and
Yeah.
like stutter, and it was
Wow.
it was bad.
Okay.
And so I was like, I couldn't do a 3-minute presentation on genetically modified rice.
Okay.
And it was like slides that are given to you.
Yeah,
You just go read them.
Yeah.
Like the kids.
So what kept you? What kept you from applying into medical school or dentistry?
So the first one
Like
was
after you finished pharmacy.
After I finished pharmacy, it was needing to actually support the family initially. It was needing to support the family financially and pay off my tuition fees.
Okay.
Like I had lots of tuition loans.
Okay.
Like again, 3 of us.
But you're still extremely young.
I was still
So you
extremely young, so I figured
you
I'm
still
gonna.
could have done anything you wanted.
So I figured I'm gonna just finish, paying off some debt and help out with the family a bit, and then I'm gonna go back.
Okay.
And then as I started working and working more, I started realizing about myself that, like in school even, and this is something I didn't notice while I was in school, I took a minor in economics. That's the only choice I made. So I went into pharmacy because my dad filled the application. I did life sciences because that's what people do before medical school and dentistry.
Yeah.
But the subjects that I chose were accounting and economics.
Yeah. So more business sided.
And it's not the business in the sense of like entrepreneurship, but the business sense of understanding how the world works.
Right.
And so economics was my favorite subject.
Okay.
Like looking supply and demand curves and understanding like the psychology of the market and all that.
Yeah.
That was my favorite. So I used to get A's in economics, and I barely studied for it.
Wow.
But all the other
Because
subjects,
you understood it really
chemistry,
well.
I struggled in, like everything.
Right.
Even though it's subjects that I would have
Right.
taken the background of in my high school,
Right.
I still struggled because in Canada they taught them differently.
Right.
But when it came to economics, I was like, I get this. Or calculus, I was like, I get this.
Yeah.
And so when I started working in pharmacies, I didn't do it the typical way. I worked in many different pharmacies at the same time.
Yeah.
So I would cross-pollinate. Like I would learn something really cool in a spot of how things are done.
Yeah.
Like imagine as a dentist, you go you did a lot of different places before you opened your own. And so you'll find yourself in your own doing a lot of things that you learned. Like I remember that place, we did it that way in that place. And so you bring them all and you do it, the Halim version now, the perfect version in your mind.
That's right.
And so I used to do that for people. And in pharmacy, which is silly, but pharmacists typically are not proactive. Pharmacists are salaried employees. They get paid by the hour. They don't have any incentive to do more.
Yeah.
And so when I would show up, I'm this 19, 20-year-old pharmacist, and I'm like, go, go, go. And I'm like pushing people to do things. And I was like, are you okay, man? Like, you know, calm down. It's just a pharmacy. And I was like, yeah, what do you mean it's just a pharmacy? We're helping people. We got to do this. I really drank the Kool-Aid at U of T of like pharmacies. Like, you know, we got to do this. We got to do this. And patients loved it.
Yeah.
And head office loved it because I was getting some really good business results, which I was oblivious to initially. But the people that are working hated my guts.
Of course.
Because I was like, you know, I was a disruptor. I'm a disruptor.
Right.
And so I started learning that there's a lot to be, and again, I don't leave things undone. And so I started learning there's a lot that could be done. I'm making a huge difference by just showing up to these places. So I started learning how to selectively do things and how to learn to be gradual and how to learn. So I was consumed in my thought process. I felt fulfilled for a period of time that I'm learning things and I'm applying them and it's making a difference. Learning, applying, making a difference.
So then you lost,
and I'm paying off my debts.
Right.
And so I lost interest for a short period of time.
Okay.
But then came the year I was leaving Sudbury, so coming back I was moving to London because my wife was now going to come do her master's in engineering in Western.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, a medical school was opening in Sudbury that year, that same year.
Yep.
It wasn't there before. I was like, you know, maybe that's a sign. Like, you know, I always wanted it. And, and the application was simpler. It wasn't linked to the full Ontario system yet. And so I filled out the application and actually submitted it as I was coming here. And then I came here and then I discovered there's a lot more to be done in London than even Sudbury because there's hospitals now.
Yeah.
So hospital was a whole new ball game for me. So I started working in the hospital. I started working overnights, 7 nights in a row, and then you get a week off.
Okay.
So in my week off, I was working in all sorts of pharmacies and in the hospital. And guess what the hospital had? A cancer program. I was like, oh my God, man, I love cancer. I want to do something with cancer. And so I put that on hold. Like I had to go do some more steps for the application.
Did you not get a...
I got a letter, we received your thing, to go on to the next step. And then I said, okay, I'm going to hold off on that for a minute.
What's the next step?
I forget now. Like I had to do my MCAT, I had to submit something, I had to pay a fee. Like there was something to, like just a step 2. I submitted my transcripts and intent to the application, so I had to submit my MCAT scores. And I had to submit a fee to do something.
And so you fell in love with the cancer component in the hospitals, and you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, and so meanwhile, also social life. My wife is coming. I was like, you know, this is Sudbury, so I don't want to. She's here. I was like, okay, what? So I would have to apply to Western, and so I was like, okay, let's just put that on hold for a minute, and let's just deal with this.
Yeah.
And then honestly, like it wasn't long after that. So that was in 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
And then Shoppers Drug Mart head office started asking me to fix locations that are having issues.
Yeah.
So
business-wise.
Indirectly. Yeah. And as a pharmacy. Yeah. So they would put me in the crappiest of the crappiest that has having issues.
Yeah.
And they knew about me something that I still didn't know about myself as a fixer.
Right.
Obviously. So they put me and I fix it up, and then they take me out before they accredit the people that own the place. So they took advantage of the situation.
Yeah, right.
And that's fine, and I was learning. I don't regret it at all.
Yeah, right.
And so we did that, and then they asked me to manage long-term care for them. So they had a whole division, and that's how you got a new thing for me, another long-term care thing. Yeah. And so long-term care is you managing now. So you put your experience from hospital and retail into nursing and retirement homes. Yeah. And so it was very interesting. I was driving now. I was on the road going to see people that are not well, and I was making a difference in them feeling well. It's like, okay, this is healing. Like this is exactly what I wanted out of healthcare. Yeah.
And so slowly the interest started going down and down. Yes.
Yeah. Honestly, now, when I turned, I'd say 28, after I had my first son, I know more about myself than like I'm grateful actually that I never got into medical school.
Right.
I'm grateful that I never got, because dentistry or medical school for me would have kept me stuck in I don't like routine. I have a problem with routine. Yeah. Once I feel that something is optimized, I can't
then you have to-
stay
right.
anymore. I have
You wanna
to,
move
I
on
have,
to something
I have
else.
to do something
Right.
else.
Yeah.
And so that's a big problem because if you're building a practice, if you're building, you can't move on. Like
Right.
it's your patients are going to come
course,
see you,
of course.
and so you can't move on. You are the main feature.
Of course.
And so and I give my all when I'm there. I give
Yeah,
my all.
of
And
course.
so I want that following, but I need to be able to pass on the teaching so that other people can maintain
And
that.
then you move on to
and
something
then open
else.
another one
Right.
with new challenges and
Right.
open another one with new challenges.
Right.
And so I need to continuously be engaged.
So then at what stage? So then now basically medical school, dental school, and all the other alternatives died down.
Now
Now
I'm
you found a
thinking-
new love,
Yeah.
which was
So
business.
now I do business courses.
Right.
Now
you
I'm
found-
interested in law school.
Oh,
Now I'm interested in things that are more how the world works.
Okay.
So back to the choice I made about economics.
Yeah.
Like, and I actually, when I was in my job before starting my own business, I
Yeah.
started a master's in health economics and biostatistics at Western.
Yeah.
But it was part-time, and then job told me you have to choose your job over
Yeah.
your master's, so
Yeah.
I had to put that on hold.
Right.
So it's still on hold.
Right.
And
So now your mind's all over the place.
my mind now is back into trying to focus my energy into what field I want to become more of an expert in.
Right.
Uh,
Either research.
However, in the last
Or law?
not
are
so,
two
so law.
opposing-
No, like law and health economics.
Yeah.
They link very well. It's like a business MBA almost. It's just
Okay.
subjects that you would learn in a business MBA.
Okay.
And so for me, I like
Which side, law or the other one?
both. So
Okay.
law will help you in contract writing, will help you in understanding what the limits of things are.
Okay.
So the way I approach projects now is I always study what the fence is.
Yeah, and try to
first.
break through it.
No, not break through it. Like
Okay.
what the fence of black and white is,
Yeah.
like what you can't cross over.
Yeah.
And then I work all the way up to the fence.
Right.
So I don't stay here. Like
Yeah.
if the fence is here, I'm
Yeah.
up. I'm right up to
Right,
here,
right.
appropriately and properly
Right,
and everything.
right.
But I'm not afraid of being close to the fence.
Right.
As long as I'm not touching it, I'm not
Right.
going to get electrocuted.
Yeah.
But if you touch it, that's a problem.
So
And
then
law helps you understand that.
okay. So but right now you're into business.
Yeah.
Right, and right now you have how many practices under
Well,
your belt?
business healthcare. So I manage a few entities. So I'm CEO of a few companies. One is a biologics and infusion company. So we run clinics that see patients for injections, for rheumatology, for MS, and so on.
Okay.
And so these are coordinated with pharmacies, of course. So the first things I started owning were pharmacies. So I
Yeah.
opened multiple pharmacies that are startup pharmacies in medical buildings.
What year did you start doing
So I
that?
started that in 2013.
2013.
Yeah.
Which is relatively recent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very recent.
Yeah.
And
So you started your first pharmacy when you were in 2013.
yes.
Okay.
My friends
And where
that
was
I
this? In
started that
London?
with in London, Ontario,
In London.
and on 140. So
Yeah.
the people I started this with were my classmates. I've known them for 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
and they after school they started opening their own pharmacies, and I was their IT support. I was the modern guy that's helping them.
Fixer-upper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was doing the same thing I'm learning
Yeah.
in my shoppers and my drugstore and all of the different things I worked at. I was helping them establish their own setups.
And so did you then open one up from scratch?
Yes.
Okay.
And so, in 2013, I opened one up from scratch.
from scratch in
and-
London.
In London.
Okay. And what got you to do that from scratch as opposed to buying one that's already existing?
Because I had a vision for it. So it was
Okay.
actually in a location that used to be run by Shoppers Drug Mart.
Yeah.
And then they scrapped the project.
Yeah.
They moved their activities to another building.
Yeah.
So the space was there.
Yeah.
And for them, before I left, I
Yeah.
gave them a full plan of what to do there.
Yeah.
And I said, this is for the person coming. That's one of the things I used to do that was kind of silly, but it's just I felt obligated to.
Yeah.
Is I gave a business plan as I was exiting
Right.
to what needs to be done
Right.
for this location to succeed.
Right.
So I did that in 3 locations, and that was one of them. And so it was a pharmacy in a medical building.
Yeah.
I said the building has this.
Is that the one in Oxford?
Yeah. I was
Okay.
like, there's so much potential.
That's the one I
here.
met you in.
Yes.
Okay.
Like, there's so much potential here,
That's
and
amazing.
it's not being met.
Yeah.
And this is what needs to happen.
Yeah.
If I had to start today, I'd do 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
and I walk away.
Yeah.
And so I walked away. That shut down.
Yeah.
And so when it shut down, I was like, okay. So my buddy calls me up. Phil, my main partner, he would call me every year almost, in between like 2007 to 2013.
Yeah.
He'd call me every year. Say, listen, I'm doing this. I need your help with this. Or that. Do you want to come in on this project? I was like, I'd love to, but I'm stuck in London, so I feel it's unfair for me to come in on the project
Yeah.
because you have other partners, and it's like if I'm not doing anything, I can help you. Though I'll help you.
Yeah.
But unless it's in the region that I can not leave my wife, who's a
Right.
newcomer to Canada,
Right.
I can't really go.
Right.
So 2012, he
Yeah.
calls me up, says, Karim, I'm moving to London. You have no excuse now. We're going to open something together, okay?
Yeah.
I was like, if you're coming here, yeah, of course,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
And then he's like, okay, I'm going to see this place. I have a real estate that recommended a spot.
Yeah.
I'm going to see it. I'll text you the address. And so I said, I have a spot for you. And I'll text you the address. And so we text each other the same address.
Oh, wow.
So he actually showed up. We met at the same place.
Right.
And so we signed the lease on the spot.
Wow.
And you know, I had the plan. Like I
Yeah,
already
right.
had the plan. So
Yeah,
I was
right.
like, okay, let's do
So,
it.
so you entered into a partnership with him.
Yeah.
Okay, and then after
The
that,
rest is history.
the rest is history.
yeah,
But no one knows the history.
Well, we
So-
opened.
so-
So I ran that
Yeah.
with him initially. Actually, we were both the main two pharmacists there, and
Yeah.
that building had 2 doctors when we started.
Yeah.
It now has about 20 or 30 doctors in it.
Wow.
A lot of growth, a lot of dynamics. So I'm not shy now,
Yeah.
and especially in my clinical role.
Okay.
So I go speak with
So
doctors.
okay,
I'm
so
very
hold on.
confident.
So pause for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so before business, how did you manage to go from being shy, because this is going to help a lot of people.
Yeah.
People that are shy right now.
Yes.
How did you manage to go from shy to now being so outspoken?
Honestly, it's feeling that I have a clear objective. And so
Feeling that you have a clear objective.
very clear objective. So most people are shy because they don't know what's going to happen.
Okay.
So if I, just take the simplest situation of shyness. Boy talks to girl, teenagers, right? But what if she what if she embarrasses me? What if
Yeah.
she does this?
What if she rejects you?
What if she, yes,
Yeah.
it's a fear of rejection.
Yeah.
You got it. And so when I was going through the process with my wife now, like rejection was not an option. And she liked me too. So what's the problem then? The rest is just process.
Yeah.
So you have this,
So
this
then-
is A,
so then-
this is B.
So then how do you eliminate the fear of rejection? Because that seems to be the ingredient of which was stopping you from becoming so outspoken.
You never eliminate it. You just learn to be okay if it happens, and
Okay.
try again.
And how did you get
You
to
know,
that point?
It's because of the objective being so clear. The
So
only
when you
way
say
of how.
when you say objective being so clear,
Yeah.
what does that mean?
So in the process with my wife, for example, like I was so sure that she's the person. Like she is, like if I imagine myself married,
Yeah.
if I imagine myself as a father one
Yeah.
day, if I imagine like it's her. Like,
Okay.
I can't think of anyone else that I know
Right.
at the time or in the future that will fit all of the things that I'm thinking about.
So if someone is shy,
Yeah.
and they think that they're very clear on an objective,
Yeah.
but they're still shy,
Yeah.
what's your advice to them?
I would ask them about I would not talk about the shyness at all.
Mm-hmm.
I would ask them, what do you want? What gets you happy? Forget about confident. Like forget about the warrior mode. What gets you happy? What makes you smile? What gets you out of bed in the morning? And then focus on these things, and then get in that state that you want these things. It's like, okay, let's figure it out then. And most of the time there is a path, and when you have a very clear goal and objective, the path tends to appear.
So would you say then that you growing up, you were shy for the most part, but for some parts you were not shy? Like for instance, when you were seeking for your wife, or for instance, when you were in class, when you were so sure about what you wanted to say, about your objective,
Yeah.
you weren't shy. And so now I would say, or maybe correct me if I'm wrong, that now you're so sure about so many other things that shy spectrum has decreased significantly.
So you'd be surprised. Like
so
I'm
now
still
you're-
shy. I'm still shy in like I have to consciously do an exercise
Yeah.
before I speak in public.
Okay.
Yeah, I have
Which
to,
exercise do you do?
Like I tell myself,
Yeah.
what's the worst that could happen?
Right.
What's
Right.
What are you afraid of?
I'm sure everyone goes through that,
But-
though.
and
But
I
that's
go-
not shyness.
No,
that's stage fear.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
even in this session. Like
Yeah.
I'm coming to speak to you.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about Sultan recording us right now because
Okay.
if I do and I
Yeah.
focus on that,
Yeah.
then that will get me to stop thinking about what you're talking about.
Okay.
And I'll get confused and I'll start stuttering and then like, what are you talking about?
Okay.
And so, but I am here because you're my friend. Like
Yeah.
so I tell myself, I'm
Yeah.
going to see my friend.
Yeah.
In a
So
lounge.
you don't make it into a big deal.
Yeah, like what's
Okay.
the problem, man?
Okay.
Like just relax.
Okay.
It's you're talking to your buddy,
Okay.
and,
Okay.
and he's a nice guy.
Yes,
He's
he's a
not
nice
gonna
guy.
make you
Yes.
look fat.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you start seeing things more clearly. So
Right.
the shyness goes away or the anxiety goes away when you see things a bit more clearly.
Yeah.
The best way to see things more clearly is to be educated, and is to have faith in what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And then to educate yourself on how other people have done it,
Yeah.
so that you know that it's been done before.
Right.
Like you're not reinventing the
Right.
wheel here. How many people have it.
And how do you get that confidence from inside you to tell yourself that yes, I can do that too? Because a lot of people, they see other people succeeding.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, other people have done it too, but I can't do that.
I think the best way to get that confidence is when you try things and it works.
When you try things and it works.
Yeah.
So to take things one step at a time.
Yeah.
So to achieve mini
Yes.
Mini
Like I'll tell you, I started driving when I was
championships,
6 years
I guess you
old.
would say. Mini
right?
championships.
So some things you will do
Yeah.
when you're not thinking,
Yeah.
and then be like, oh, great, I can do this.
Right.
I literally started driving when I was 6 years old. My dad got us in a car the first
6
time.
years old.
6 years old. I was in a car driving. I have a picture of it.
Could your foot even touch the pedal?
No, I had to sit up, and the first time I was sitting on the guy's lap, and he
Yeah.
was holding. It was a standard car. He was
Yeah.
holding clutch and
You're
stick,
just
and I'm
holding
just steering wheel and gas
Okay.
and brakes.
Okay.
And I almost crashed us still.
Yeah.
Right. And
course.
so
You're
that
6
was
years old.
yeah.
Did
But
you even see past the?
but see, what made me confident in that moment is I felt supported,
Yeah.
and I had no thought of consequences
Right.
whatsoever.
Right.
So I
'Cause you're
was like,
6 years
oh,
old.
cool. I was like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then I go.
Right.
And so sometimes thinking too much, complicating the consequences,
Right.
gets you to not try things.
Right.
And so,
And when
so
you
this
not,
is why,
and
this
we
is
don't
why,
try things, you stay in that little
yeah,
cocoon.
and then you're just
and then that
you're
cocoon
neither
gets bigger
moving,
and bigger and bigger
yes.
until you can't even break out
So
of it.
this is why now, before I start anything new,
Yeah.
I want to learn what defense is.
Uh-huh.
Because defense is what tells you what's
So-
the worst that could happen.
So the defense of yourself.
Defense of myself, defense of the
things
item,
around you. That's right.
defense of what it
Of
is,
your goal, that's
and
right.
that's the knowledge.
Right.
Defense of what I can do and can't do.
Right.
I don't give myself limits on that because I've proven to myself that I'm an idiot when giving myself, an evaluation of how
Right.
much I can do.
Right.
I'm very restrictive, and most of us are. It's not just me. Like we
That's
all
right.
think we can't do it. I
That's
can't do
right.
it.
That's
I
right.
was like, have you tried?
Yeah.
No. How do you know you can?
Right.
Right. And
Right.
I was always like very logical. So with my dad's conversation, come from Concentrate. Right?
Yeah.
So I credit him on a
And
lot
my
of
dad
these
from
things as well.
Concentrate.
But he would come and say like, "You sure you can't?"
Yeah.
Like, Tony
Yeah.
was like, "Are you sure?
Yeah, yeah.
Are you positive?
Yeah, have you examined all the other options?
Is there no
Yeah.
way that you can like literally like you gotta
Yeah.
understand like my dad signed me up for a business course A level like a university level business course.
Yeah.
After I finished this is in my second year. This is before I even do the course.
Yeah.
We finished exams for the term in November, and on that day of last exam, like coming out and celebrating, he tells me, "I signed you up for an exam. It's in 4 days. It's an advanced business level course. But listen, it doesn't matter if you fail. I just want you to write it so that you go through the experience." And I was like, what the hell? Like I just finished he's like, let me celebrate. And he's like, that's okay. You celebrate and everything for 2 hours. And then we're like, the tutor is coming and you're going to study for the next 4 days. And we literally had like a camp for 4 days where a guy was staying at our house,
Wow.
not going home.
Yeah.
And I'm studying business like for 4, like I'm like, like
Yeah.
this. And I'm
Yeah,
like
right.
studying advanced business. And
Yeah.
I was 12 and a
Yeah.
half, 13.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't get this. And I started freaking out. And I
Yeah.
wrote that exam. I passed.
Nice.
And
In
so
4
when
days.
I passed, he's like, see, I told you. So he kept proving me wrong.
Yeah, right.
And it was so pissing me off
Yeah.
that he's right.
At the time.
At the time.
At the time.
And I didn't
But
get
now
those
you're
lessons.
super grateful.
Now I'm
that-
grateful
that
because
happened.
because he thinks the same way.
Right.
So this fence thing, so my dad wants to see like what's the
How far
how
can I
far
push
can
him?
my kid go?
Right,
You know?
right.
So let's push him but carefully.
So then in terms of giving people advice, in terms of how far they can push themselves,
Yeah.
what would you give them in terms of advice?
I would say how far to push yourself?
Yeah.
What would you give them? I would say that I think we're all capable of doing everything. I think that's what the baseline should be. Like,
Okay.
don't start from the baseline of I can't do it. And don't start from the baseline of if everybody's doing it, then I can either. It doesn't, like, don't put your own abilities as a comparison level to others. Your own abilities are your own abilities. There's only one voice in your head all the time.
So,
and that's you.
so are you saying then nurture the naivety or the
Yeah.
what's it like if you're naive?
If you're naive, yeah.
So nurture that to
Nurture
the
it.
maximum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why not? Like, what's the worst that could happen?
Okay.
And so instead of saying I can't do it or this sounds difficult, like what's the worst that could happen?
Right.
I like to think what's the worst that could happen
Right.
first. And then I like to think, okay, is it worth it? So after you say what's the worst that could happen, like
Right.
define it, right?
Right.
If you're gonna go lift 100 pounds
Yeah.
and you only lifted 50 all
Yeah,
your life,
right.
what's the worst that could happen? I could collapse my chest. Okay,
That's right.
that's not a good
Yeah, that's
idea.
not- right.
What's the weight at which I wouldn't collapse, but I might need to like hold it a little?
Yeah,
70?
70, yeah.
Okay, I'll do 70,
Right.
right? Okay, after that, I'll say, why am I doing so? After
Yeah.
you decide what's
Yeah.
the worst that could happen so you
Yeah.
feel safe,
Yeah.
okay, why am I lifting 70?
Right.
Like, is 70 gonna really, what are my fitness goals again?
Yeah.
And then you start revising
Right.
that. It's like, okay, what am I trying to do?
And you're pushing yourself
And
one
then-
step at a time.
Yes.
Okay,
And
I
so
got
you define, the limitation that's stopping you from doing it, and then you make yourself feel safe.
Yeah.
And then you start thinking, okay, what am I actually trying to achieve?
You're right. I'll tell you something. So when I started the business, I also went through the exact same mental process. And I
Yeah.
said to myself, I said, what's the worst that can happen? Literally.
You shut it down.
Literally. I said, what's the worst that could happen? And in my mind, I'm like, is it worth, and exact same thing. I'm like, is it worth me going through all that? And both of them were, yep.
Yep. Yeah, and that's it.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
There you go. Exactly. And that's the thing.
That's right.
And so my dad, the huge favor that my dad did for me is that he put me in those situations without me even knowing or recognizing it at the time, at a very young age. You know, what's the worst that could happen if I didn't pass through my high school exams? I go back to regular school and I just do the same normal pace.
So then what do you wish for your kids? Do you wish the same thing for your kids? Are you going to go through the same thing with them?
So of course everything has advantages and disadvantages. So for my kids, it depends on the kid. Of course, in my early years in university, I was really stressed out. Like it wasn't easy.
Of course.
And
Everyone gets stressed out,
I blamed it all on him.
course.
Of course, you know, I said,
course.
you know, it's all your fault.
Of
You know,
course.
you made me do this.
Every kid blames their troubles and stresses on their parents.
I have no friends.
Right.
I've never spoken to a girl without, you know, saying 2 words, and you know now they're talking to me and I don't know what to say and I have no confidence.
Yeah.
Like it's all pluses and minuses.
Of course.
But I truly believe that I'm gonna do the best. Like just like I you know, at an older age, I reflect on what my dad did, and I believe he did the best possible thing that he could ever do.
Of course.
And that's what my intention for my sons are.
So you're gonna fast track them.
So I will not fast track them if I don't feel they have that in them.
Okay.
And so, and I've changed, like the priorities that my dad had at the time are based on the survival mode that he came with his parents from, right?
Yes.
And so my priorities with my kids are not survival.
Right.
Survival, alhamdulillah, and we live in a society where survival is almost a right. Like everybody has the right to survive.
Yes.
And so that's not really the biggest skill that what they need to understand is diversity and not judging others.
Right.
What they need to understand is we're all one kind.
Right.
What they need to understand a lot more so, importantly, in this day and age, than survival. Survival is very key and important.
So more
as well.
deep education, more deep and vast
More
education.
deep, profound, and big picture education. So I'm going to start.
So increase horizon.
What I want to start with my kids is with my realizations of the fence.
Right.
So in everything that they do, I want them to know exactly the limits of it.
Yeah.
And I want them to not tell themselves that they can't reach those limits. So if they want to excel in sports, I never did sport. I did, I'm doing sports at an old age because I never got into sports. So I feel like I missed out on all of those whole sports athletic things. Right. And so I don't want them, if they are into sports, I want to push them so that they achieve everything that they can achieve in
So you're
sports.
increasing their horizons.
Yes.
Basically.
So not necessarily just in academia.
Right.
So I want to teach them all the lessons my dad taught me.
Yeah.
But his method was academics.
Right.
But not necessarily through academics if that's not what they're inclined to do.
You want to be more diverse.
My
you want
older
them to be exposed to a lot different aspects of life.
My older kid is very artistic,
academics.
for example.
Yes.
So if he likes art, and I want him to be a painter. Go write it. Join a competition when you're 12.
Yes.
Compete with older people.
Or even younger.
But like compete. Like don't be afraid to compete with experts in the field at a young age. That I'll push him for.
Of course.
But it's not, if academia is not what he's into. Like I was a very smart kid apparently in like grade 3 and 4 in terms of I was getting good grades and stuff. Yeah. And so that was the seed, I guess, that my father saw that he can plant and grow a bit more. But with
your kids,
my kids, it's all.
You want them to experiment different kinds of aspects of life. Yeah,
yes. And I want them to really have a strong spiritual connection to what they're doing, like a purpose. Yeah. Like it's not just about what you can achieve, but it's why are you achieving. So it's not just the what, it's the what and the why. Okay. And not worry about the how.
You get one piece of advice that you can give people that are watching this. What's one piece of advice at random that you can give them that they can take home and apply today?
The one piece of advice that I can give them to take home today is that life is not a competition in the worldly sense of things. So we're not here to beat each other for the sake of beating each other in this life. We're here so that we can push each other to be better.
That's awesome.
And so competition is different. Like, you're competing with your teammate on the same team. You're not competing with your teammate on the other team.
Right.
We're all on the same team. So
That's awesome.
compete, but compete so that you push the other person to do better.
That's awesome.
Not compete so that you can make the other person feel like crap.
Thank you.
That's the only
thank you so much.
big picture advice.
And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. It was very, very intense, and I learned a lot about you.
I hope I didn't bore you.
No, it was awesome. Thank you so much for being on Discover with Sbenati. I really appreciate it. And hopefully you'll be on it a year from now, and you'll tell us more stories. Thank you guys for being on Discover with Sbenati and for watching. And for those that are listening on Discover with Sbenati, I hope you gain a lot of insight. Karim can be reached, and I will include his links and his email below in the description box below if you're watching YouTube. And if not, he's going to be linked as well on the social media platforms, the one that he's subscribed to. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time on Discover.
Thank you.